The forgotten Pharaoh Seps. Curse. Egypt Seps. Darkest secret. Fade in darkness. Then the sound of sand shifting. The year is 1926. And somewhere beneath the scorching Egyptian desert, a team of archaeologists stands frozen at the entrance of a tomb that should not exist. Their torches flicker in a wind that has no source. The lead archaeologist, Dr. Jonathan Blackwell, places his trembling hand against the sealed stone door and feels it, a pulse, rhythmic, ancient, alive. He will be dead in 9 days, but right now, in this moment, he does not know that the door he is about to open has been waiting for him specifically for 3,000 years. The hieroglyphs carved into the entrance are wrong. Every Egyptian scholar on the team notices it immediately. The symbols are inverted, backwards, written in the language of the dead, not the living. One symbol repeats 17 times across the seal, a symbol that does not appear in any known Egyptian text. When their translator finally deciphers it, his voice breaks. He who walks between breath. The local Bedouin workers refuse to approach. They stand at the excavation perimeter, their faces drained of color. The eldest among them speaks in broken English. That place where you dig is not a tomb, it is a prison. 3 days ago, the team photographer developed his latest batch of film. In every single photograph taken of the sealed entrance, there is something. A shadow, not cast by any member of the expedition. Not matching any rock formation or structural element. A shadow in the shape of a man, standing in the doorway. In every photograph, the shadow is closer to the camera. Someone asks the obvious question. If it moves between photos, then what happens when we open the door? Nobody answers. Because deep down they already know. Dr. Blackwell orders the seal broken. 20 men, with hammers and crowbars, work for 6 hours. The stone should crumble. Ancient limestone weakened by millennia of desert heat and cold. But every strike of the hammer sends shockwaves up their arms, as if they are hitting solid iron. The workers begin to sweat, despite the evening chill. Their hands bleed. Still they continue because Dr. Blackwell has promised them triple wages. Money makes men forget their fear. At least for a while. And precisely sunset, the seal cracks. Not from their efforts, but on its own. A single vertical fracture that splits the door perfectly down the center. The sound it makes is wrong. Not the grinding of stone on stone, but something wet, organic, like bone breaking inside flesh. Every man steps back. The torches gutter and die simultaneously. In the sudden darkness, someone screams, and they relight the torches. 30 seconds later, one of the workers is missing. His name is Hassan. He was standing closest to the door. They search for Hassan for 2 hours. They find his hammer. They find his water canteen. They find one of his boots standing upright in the sand. But Hassan himself has vanished. There are no footprints leading away from the site. No signs of struggle. Nothing. Dr. Blackwell makes a decision that will haunt the survivors for the rest of their short lives. He orders the excavation to continue. Hassan probably just ran off. Scared, he tells them. Desert, madness, he says. They will find him in the morning wandering delirious but alive. He is lying and everyone knows it. The door opens inward with a sound like a long-held breath being released. The smell that emerges is impossible. Not the musty decay of an ancient tomb, but something else. Copper, burnt hair, myrrh mixed with rotting flowers. One team member vomits immediately. Another faints. Dr. Blackwell stands at the threshold and raises his torch. The light does not penetrate far. The darkness inside seems to absorb it, swallow it, hungry for illumination after 3,000 years of isolation. He steps inside. His footsteps echo strangely. Not the single echo you would expect, but multiple overlapping echoes. as if dozens of feet are walking in perfect synchronization with his own. The walls are covered in hieroglyphs, but these are different from anything in the outer chamber. These hieroglyphs are carved deep, gouged into the stone with desperate violence, and they are all warnings. Turn back. Do not speak his name. Do not look upon his face. Do not break the 7 seals. Most disturbing of all, one phrase repeated hundreds of times. He is not dead. He is listening. He is waiting. He is here. The tomb descends, not gradually but sharply. A stone staircase spiraling downward into the earth, far deeper than any known pharaonic burial chamber. Egyptian tombs are built upward toward the sun, toward the sky, toward rebirth. This tomb burrows down toward whatever the ancient Egyptians believed waited in the deepest darkness. The team counts the steps. After 300 they stop counting. After 500 some men refuse to go further. Dr. Blackwell does not stop, cannot stop. Something is pulling him forward, a compulsion he will later describe in his journal as feeling like invisible hands pressed against his back, pushing him deeper into the earth. At the bottom of the stairs they find the first chamber. It is wrong in every architectural sense. The walls slope inward, creating a sensation of being crushed. The ceiling is too low, forcing everyone to hunch, and covering every surface are not treasures or funerary goods, but bones. Thousands of them, arranged in patterns that hurt to look at. Geometric impossibilities that seem to shift when viewed from the corner of the eye. The team physician examines several skulls. These people died screaming, he says quietly. You can tell from the jaw dislocation. Whatever killed them, they died in absolute terror. They press forward. The second chamber contains something that makes 2 team members turn back immediately. A throne, carved from single piece of black granite. But the throne is built backwards. The seat faces the wall, not the room, as if whatever sat there was meant to stare into solid stone for eternity. And on the wall directly in front of the throne is a door, sealed with 7 iron bands. Each band is inscribed with the same symbol, the symbol that means he who walks between breaths. Dr. Blackwell approaches the door. His hand reaches out, and from the other side they all hear it, a sound that turns their blood to ice. Breathing, slow, patient, waiting. Dr. Blackwell touches the first iron band. It is warm. In a tomb buried hundreds of feet below the desert, in a chamber that has been sealed for 3 millennia, the iron is warm, body temperature warm. The breathing from the other side of the door stops. Total silence. Then a voice, not spoken, but somehow transmitted directly into their minds. A voice that speaks in ancient Egyptian, but they all understand it perfectly. You opened my door. You broke my seal. You spoke my name in your hearts when you found this place. I have been waiting so long, so very long, and now I am awake. The torches explode. Not extinguish, but explode in showers of sparks and burning oil. Men scream. In the absolute darkness, something moves, heavy footsteps on stone, coming from the direction of the sealed door, but the door has not opened. The 7 bands remain intact, yet the footsteps continue, closer, closer. Someone manages to strike a match. The tiny flame reveals nothing. Empty chamber, no figure, no threat. Just the backward throne and the sealed door. But the footsteps do not stop. They circle the team, around and around, inspecting, choosing. When they finally escape back to the surface, the sun is rising. They have been underground for 9 hours, though it felt like minutes. Every man is changed. Their faces are hollow, eyes too wide, skin too pale. They do not speak of what happened in those final moments in the burial chamber. Some things cannot be put into words without inviting madness. But that night in his tent, Dr. Blackwell writes in his journal. His handwriting is shaking. His words make no sense. He writes, "I saw his face. I looked upon the forgotten Pharaoh. He is not dead. Death would be mercy. He is trapped, awake, aware, suffering. And now that we have opened his prison, he will do anything to escape. He will wear our skin. He will speak through our mouths. He will walk in our bodies. We should never have come here. We should seal the tomb and bury it forever. But it is too late. He has already chosen me. I can feel him in my thoughts, growing stronger. He whispers promises. He shows me visions. He tells me his true name. The name that was erased from every monument. The name that history forgot. The name that should never be spoken aloud." Dr. Blackwell never writes another word. The next page of his journal is blank, except for a single symbol drawn in what appears to be blood. The symbol that means he who walks between breaths. 9 days later, Dr. Jonathan Blackwell is found dead in his tent. His body is contorted into an impossible position, spine bent backwards, limbs twisted at angles that defy human anatomy. But most disturbing of all, his face. His expression is not one of pain or fear. It is smiling. A wide ecstatic smile, and his eyes are open, staring at something no one else can see. The Egyptian authorities rule it a heart attack. They are either fools or liars, because everyone who was there that night knows the truth. Dr. Blackwell did not die of natural causes. He was taken, pulled into the darkness by something that has been waiting beneath the sand for 3,000 years. Something that is now free. And this is only the beginning. To understand the curse, we must first understand the Pharaoh. But here we encounter our first impossibility. There is no Pharaoh, not in any official record, not in any king list, not carved on any monument or temple wall. Egyptian history is meticulous. Every ruler documented, every reign recorded, every name preserved for eternity, except one, the forgotten Pharaoh, the erased king, the ruler whose very existence was systematically removed from history. When a civilization goes to such lengths to erase someone, it is not out of disrespect, it is out of terror. The evidence for his existence comes not from what was written, but from what was deliberately destroyed. Archaeologists have found temples where entire walls were chiseled smooth, cartouches gouged out with such violence that the stone beneath is shattered, statues with their faces hammered into powder, tombs where the name has been scratched away so thoroughly that even the indentations are gone. This is not the work of rival dynasties or foreign invaders. This is the work of priests, of scholars, of people who believed that even the memory of this pharaoh was dangerous, that his name itself carried power, that to speak it was to invite him back. Historical records place his reign during the 13th dynasty, a period already shrouded in mystery and chaos. Egypt was fracturing. The kingdom divided, foreign powers encroaching, famine spreading. It was a time of desperation, a time when the old gods seemed to have abandoned their people, and into this chaos came a pharaoh who promised salvation. He claimed to have discovered ancient knowledge, secrets from before the first dynasty, before the pyramids, before recorded time. He said he had found a way to speak directly with the gods, to command them, to bend the very fabric of life and death to his will. At first, the people celebrated him. The priests endorsed him. He performed miracles, they said, ended droughts, healed plagues, saw the future written in the stars. But something changed. The texts that survive speak of a ritual, a forbidden ceremony performed in secret. The pharaoh descended into a chamber beneath the temple of Osiris. He went alone. He carried with him 3 things: a blade made from meteorite iron, a bowl carved from human skull, and a scroll written in a language that predated hieroglyphs. When he emerged 3 days later, he was different. His eyes were black, completely black. No white, no iris, just infinite darkness. And he spoke in 2 voices, his own and something else, something old, something that should not have a voice. The priests realized their mistake too late. The Pharaoh had not contacted the gods. He had opened a door to something else, something the ancient Egyptians did not worship but feared, an entity from the time before creation, before light, before life. The texts call it by many names: the devourer, the silence between heartbeats, he who walks between breath. It was not a god, but the opposite of God, the absence where deity should be. And the Pharaoh had invited it into himself, made himself a vessel, a doorway through which it could enter the world of the living. What followed was a reign of systematic horror. The Pharaoh declared new laws. All firstborn sons were to be brought to the palace. They were never seen again. Mass graves from this period show evidence of ritualistic murder on an industrial scale. Children, women, elderly, all killed according to specific patterns. Their bodies arranged in symbols that archaeologists still cannot fully interpret. But the positioning is clearly intentional, clearly designed to achieve some purpose. Some believe these murders were sacrifices. Others think they were a spell, a massive working of dark magic written in human flesh and bone. The temples changed. Priests who questioned the Pharaoh disappeared. Those who remained began worshipping new entities, not the traditional Egyptian pantheon but something else. Shadowy figures depicted in hidden chambers, forms that are almost human but wrong. Elongated, twisted, void where faces should be. These images are always shown emerging from doorways or mirrors or still water, always in the act of crossing over from somewhere else. The hieroglyphs accompanying these images are corrupted, standard religious texts rewritten with words that invert their meaning. Prayers for protection become invitations, blessings become curses, the very language itself weaponized. Then came the plague. Not a disease, but something stranger. People began to report shared nightmares. The entire population of cities dreaming the same thing, a corridor, endless, stone walls pressing closer. And at the end a door. Behind the door something waiting. Something vast, something hungry. Those who had the dream changed. They stopped eating, stopped sleeping, just sat and stared at nothing with empty eyes. Within days they were dead, but before dying they would speak, all saying the same thing. He is coming. He is almost here. He is bringing the silence. The priests finally acted. A coalition formed in secret. They knew they could not kill the Pharaoh. Whatever inhabited him was beyond death. So they devised something else. A prison, not for his body, but for his consciousness, his soul, his very essence. They spent months preparing, gathering artifacts of power, calling upon every god in the Egyptian pantheon for aid. They created a tomb unlike any other, not a passage to the afterlife, but a trap. A cage designed to hold something that transcended mortality. The ritual took place at midnight, during a lunar eclipse. 13 high priests surrounded the Pharaoh. They chanted words of binding, words so old and powerful that speaking them cost each priest their voice permanently. The Pharaoh fought. The texts say he killed 7 of the priests with a gesture, turned their blood to sand inside their veins. But the remaining 6 held firm. They completed the ritual. The Pharaoh's body collapsed, but they could all feel it. The thing inside him. It was still aware, still conscious, trapped in a body that could no longer move but mind intact, experiencing everything, unable to die. unable to sleep, unable to escape. They sealed him in the tomb alive, bound him in position on the backward throne, placed him facing the wall so he could see nothing but stone. Then they sealed the chamber with 7 iron bands, each band inscribed with words of binding, each band a lock on a prison designed to last eternity. And then they erased him, removed his name from every surface, destroyed every image, burned every record. They wanted him forgotten, because they understood something crucial. Names have power. Memory has power. As long as someone remembered him, he had a connection to the world of the living, a thread he could pull, a way back. But here is the horror that the priests could not foresee. You cannot truly erase someone from history. Gaps remain. Mysteries emerge. Archaeologists ask questions. And eventually someone starts digging. Someone finds the tomb. Someone opens the door. And after 3,000 years of isolation, 3,000 years of absolute darkness and silence, 3,000 years of being awake and aware and trapped, the forgotten Pharaoh has been waiting for this moment. Patient, focused, hungry beyond measure, not for food or water or air, but for something far more precious, for flesh that can move, for eyes that can see, for a voice that can speak his name again. And now Dr. Blackwell has given him that opportunity. The expedition team consists of 17 people. By the end of the year, 12 of them will be dead. 3 will be institutionalized. 1 will vanish completely, leaving no trace. Only 1 will survive long enough to tell the truth. Her name is Elizabeth Chen, assistant archaeologist, age 24. She keeps a diary. Every entry is dated, time-stamped, precise. The diary begins with excitement and professional curiosity. It ends with barely legible scrawls begging anyone who finds it to burn the tomb and salt the earth, to seal it forever, to never speak of what they found. Day 1 after opening the tomb, Elizabeth writes that the team is celebrating. They have made the discovery of the century, a completely intact 13th dynasty burial chamber. Dr. Blackwell is convinced this will revolutionize Egyptian archaeology. He spends hours photographing the hieroglyphs, documenting every detail. He seems energized, almost manic. Elizabeth notes that he barely sleeps, barely eats, just works without stopping. She finds it impressive. Later she will realize it was the first sign. The forgotten Pharaoh was already inside his mind, already learning, already spreading. Day 3. Songsu missing. The Egyptian authorities send a search party. They find nothing. Elizabeth writes that the local workers are terrified. Most have quit. Those who remain will only work during daylight hours. They refuse to approach the tomb entrance after sunset. When asked why, they will not explain, just shake their heads and make warning signs. The elder Bedouin who warned them initially comes to the camp. He speaks to Elizabeth because she is the only one who shows him respect. He tells her a story. His grandfather worked on an excavation in this area 70 years ago. They found a tomb, opened it. Every man on that expedition died within a month. His grandfather survived by never entering the tomb, never touching anything from inside. But he had nightmares until the day he died. Always the same dream. A door, a throne, a voice saying, "I am waiting." Day 5. Strange sounds at night. Elizabeth documents them carefully. Footsteps circling the camp. Whispers in a language no one recognizes. Equipment moved during the night and arranged in patterns. One morning they find all the camp shovels standing upright in the sand, pushed deep, arranged in a perfect circle around Dr. Blackwell's tent. He does not seem concerned. Says it is probably local thieves trying to scare them away. But Elizabeth notices his hands shake when he says this, notices the dark circles under his eyes, notices that he has stopped blinking regularly. just stares without expression for long periods. Day 7. The photographer Michael Torres develops his latest film. Every photograph from inside the tomb shows the same anomaly. A dark spot, human-shaped. In every image it is in a different location, but always closer to the camera, always advancing. Michael examines the negatives under magnification. The figure is not a flaw in development, not a light leak, not double exposure. It is actually present in the image. He can see details, the suggestion of a face, the outline of robes, and something else. In one photograph, taken deep in the burial chamber, Michael swears he can see eyes, black eyes, looking directly at the camera, looking through the camera, looking at him. Day 9. Dr. Blackwell dies. Elizabeth is the one who finds him. She writes that nothing could have prepared her for the sight. His tent is undisturbed, nothing broken, no signs of struggle, but his body, she cannot describe it adequately. The spine bent backwards impossibly far, legs twisted into positions human joints cannot achieve. And his smile, that terrible ecstatic smile, as if in his final moments he saw something wonderful, something that made all the pain worth it. The Egyptian medical examiner performs the autopsy, finds nothing. Heart stopped, no poison, no disease, no physical trauma that would explain the contorted position. He rules it natural causes. Everyone else knows better. Day 12. Michael Torres dies. Found at the bottom of an excavation trench, neck broken from the fall. But Elizabeth knows something is wrong. Michael was terrified of heights, would never stand near the edge of a trench. And the trench is only 15 feet deep. A fall from that height might break bones, but would rarely be fatal. Yet Michael's neck is snapped cleanly, professionally, as if by someone who knew exactly where to apply pressure. The team physician examines the body, finds bruising on the shoulders, handprints, but the bruises are strange, too large, fingers too long, not quite human proportions. Day 15. Elizabeth makes a discovery that changes everything. She is cataloging hieroglyphs from the outer chamber when she notices something. Certain symbols appear to be instructions, a warning system. She spends 2 days translating. What she finds makes her blood freeze. The hieroglyphs describe the forgotten Pharaoh, describe what he was, what he became, and they describe the curse. Not a curse in the traditional sense, not a punishment for disturbing the tomb, but something far worse. The curse is the Pharaoh himself. He is not dead, cannot die. The ritual trapped his consciousness in an eternal present, aware, suffering, desperate, and anyone who enters his tomb creates a connection, a thread, a way for him to reach out, to touch their minds, to slowly pull himself into their thoughts until he can take control. Day 17. The team psychiatrist, Dr. Sarah Way, begins showing symptoms. She comes to Elizabeth late at night, says she has been having dreams. In the dreams she is someone else, someone ancient, someone male. She can feel him inside her head, hear his thoughts mixing with her own. He is teaching her things, showing her rituals, explaining how the curse works. In the dream she is him, the forgotten Pharaoh, and she can feel what he feels. The unbearable isolation, the maddening awareness, the overwhelming need to escape, to live again, to feel sunlight, and taste food, and speak and move and breathe. Sarah is crying as she tells Elizabeth this. She knows what is happening, knows she is being taken over, but she cannot stop it, cannot resist. The Pharaoh is too strong, too patient, too desperate. Day 19. Sarah Way dies. Suicide according to the official report. She walked into the desert at noon. and just kept walking. No water, no hat. By the time they found her, she had walked 17 miles. Her body was severely dehydrated, skin burned black. But what disturbs Elizabeth most is that Sarah was found facing the tomb, miles away in the empty desert, but her body had turned to face the exact direction of the burial chamber, as if, even in death, she was being pulled back. Day 22. Elizabeth reads Dr. Blackwell's journal. She knows she should not. It is private, but she needs to understand. The journal is disturbing. The handwriting deteriorates over time. The entries become less coherent. On day 3, after opening the tomb, Blackwell writes, "I can hear him." On day 5, "He speaks in my dreams." On day 7, "He shows me things that happened 3,000 years ago. I see through his eyes. I feel what he felt." On day 8, "He tells me his name, his true name. The name that was erased. I want to write it down, but I know I should not. Names have power. If I write it, I give him more strength. But he keeps whispering it, over and over. So beautiful, so perfect, so right. Just say my name. He tells me, just speak it once, and I will show you everything. I will give you knowledge, power, life eternal. All you have to do is speak my name." The final entry is dated the night before Blackwell's death. Just one sentence. "His name is everything, and I give it to him freely." Below that the symbol, "He who walks between breaths," drawn in blood. Elizabeth realizes the truth. Blackwell was not murdered. He gave himself willingly. Let the Pharaoh take him. And in that moment of possession, that moment of complete surrender, his body could not contain the force of what entered him. The ancient consciousness, too vast, too powerful. It broke him, shattered him, used him up in seconds, and discarded the husk. Day 25. The team decides to seal the tomb. Elizabeth pushes for this. She shows them the hieroglyphs, explains the curse. Some believe her. Others think she is hysterical, paranoid, suffering from heat exhaustion and grief. They argue, but ultimately decide caution is wise. They will seal the entrance, leave the Pharaoh buried, return to Cairo, and report that the tomb was empty, looted in antiquity. Everyone agrees. It is the right decision, the only decision. But that night, Elizabeth hears them. The footsteps, circling, closer, and the whisper, "So clear now, so close. You cannot leave me here. You opened my door. You are mine now. All of you, mine." Day 26. 3 more team members die, found in their tents. Same contorted positions, same expressions of twisted joy. The Egyptian authorities shut down the excavation immediately. Declare the site unsafe, possibly contaminated with unknown pathogens. They quarantine everyone. Elizabeth is held for medical observation. She tries to tell them the truth. They sedate her, call her delusional, but she knows what is happening. The Pharaoh is accelerating, becoming stronger, learning how to move between hosts more efficiently. Each death teaches him. Each possession makes the next one easier. He is escaping, one body at a time. Day 30. Elizabeth is released from quarantine. She is the only one who feels normal. Everyone else who entered the tomb shows symptoms: insomnia, auditory hallucinations, shared nightmares. She does not understand why she is different, why he has not come for her. Then she realizes he does not need her yet. She is going to be the survivor, the witness, the one who carries the story. She is his messenger. And when the time is right, when enough people know about the tomb, when enough people become curious, he will call her back, and she will come. She knows she will, because part of her wants to. part of her already belongs to him. The expedition officially ends. The tomb is sealed with concrete. The site is marked as hazardous. Armed guards are posted. Elizabeth returns to England. She tries to resume her life. She cannot. Every night the dreams come. The corridor, the door, the throne, and the voice. Soon, he tells her, soon I will have enough. Enough hosts, enough deaths, enough memory, enough power, and then I will rise, not in one body, but in many. I will walk again. I will speak again. I will rule again. And you, my dear Elizabeth, you will help me. You will tell my story. You will make them remember. And when they remember, they will come looking. They always do. Curiosity is humanity's greatest weakness. The door to my tomb is concrete now, but concrete breaks. Seals fail. Gourds grow lazy. Someone will open it again. Someone always does. I am patient. I have waited 3,000 years. I can wait a little longer. Elizabeth Chen dies 6 months later. Officially, a car accident. But the police report notes something odd. She was driving toward the coast, toward the port, as if she was trying to get on a ship, to return to Egypt, to return to the tomb. In her apartment, they find her diary. The final entry is dated the night before her death. Just 3 words. He is calling. Below that, a drawing, a door, and emerging from the door, a shadow in the shape of a man. She has titled the drawing, "The Forgotten Pharaoh Returns." She was right. The curse does not end with the expedition. It spreads. Like a disease passed through memory and proximity. Everyone connected to the tomb becomes a potential host, a doorway through which the forgotten pharaoh can reach into the living world. The pattern becomes clear only in retrospect, only when researchers decades later compile the evidence and realize they are not looking at coincidence. They are looking at systematic predation, a hunting strategy, 3,000 years in the making. Lord William Ashford, British Museum curator, never visited Egypt, never entered the tomb, but he was present when the first artifacts arrived in London. Sarcophagus fragments, pieces of the backward throne, a sealed canopic jar that should have contained organs but was empty, just hollow clay and darkness. Lord Ashford supervised the unpacking personally, wore gloves, took every precaution. Yet within a week he began exhibiting symptoms. His wife Catherine writes in her diary that William changed. He stopped sleeping in their bed. She would find him standing in the museum basement at 3 in the morning, just standing, staring at the artifacts. When she asked what he was doing, he would smile and say, "I am listening." 2 weeks after the artifacts arrived, Lord Ashford developed a fever, temperature spiking to dangerous levels. Physicians were baffled. Blood tests showed nothing. No infection, no virus, no bacteria. Yet his body was burning itself from the inside. The fever lasted 6 days. On the 7th day it broke. William seemed to recover, but Catherine noticed details. The way he moved was different, more fluid, almost graceful. His speech patterns changed. He began using words no one had heard him say before. Ancient words, Egyptian words, and his eyes. Catherine wrote that when William looked at her, she had the overwhelming sensation that a stranger was looking out through his eyes. Someone old, someone patient, someone waiting. Lord Ashford died on a Thursday morning in February, found in the museum basement, lying on top of the sarcophagus fragment. His body arranged to match the position of the pharaoh on the backward throne, spine arched, limbs twisted. But here is what makes Catherine's blood run cold. William had been dead for at least 12 hours, according to the medical examiner, yet Catherine had spoken to him that morning, had breakfast with him, watched him leave for the museum. If the time of death was correct, then the man she had breakfast with was not her husband. It was something else. Something wearing William's face. Something that walked and talked and smiled. And when it was done with his body, it simply returned it to the museum and left. The autopsy reveals impossible findings. Lord Ashford's heart shows signs of extreme stress, as if it had been beating frantically for days without rest. His lungs are damaged. Tissue breakdown, consistent with drowning. But there is no fluid, no water, just destroyed tissue. The physician writes in his report that the damage pattern suggests the patient was unable to breathe properly for an extended period, as if something was sharing his respiratory system, competing for oxygen. The report is marked inconclusive. The physician retires 6 months later, never practices medicine again. When asked why, he simply says, "There are things medical science cannot explain, and I do not wish to encounter them again." Catherine Ashford survives her husband by 3 years. In that time, she becomes obsessed with the tomb, reads everything published about the expedition, contacts Elizabeth Chen. Before her death, they exchange letters. Elizabeth warns her, "Burn the artifacts. Destroy everything from that tomb. Do not keep them. Do not study them. They are not relics. They are anchors, connection points, doorways." Catherine tries. She goes to the museum board, demands the artifacts be destroyed. They refuse. "These are priceless historical objects," they tell her. "You are grieving," they say. "Your judgment is impaired." She threatens legal action. They have her removed from the premises. Catherine takes matters into her own hands, breaks into the museum at night, brings kerosene and matches. She will burn the cursed objects herself. But when she reaches the basement, she finds someone already there. A man, tall, thin, face hidden in shadow. He is touching the sarcophagus fragment, running his hands over the hieroglyphs, speaking in a language that hurts to hear, words that seem to vibrate in her chest, in her skull. The man turns, looks at her. His eyes are completely black, and when he smiles, she recognizes the expression. It is William's smile, the smile from that last week. Catherine runs, drops the kerosene, flees the museum. She never goes back. 3 years after William's death, Catherine throws herself from London Bridge. Her suicide note is brief. "I see him everywhere, in crowds, in reflections, in my dreams. He wears different faces, but I know it is him. He is spreading, moving from person to person, using them up and moving on. I cannot live knowing he is out there, knowing William's death meant nothing, knowing the Pharaoh is free." The note is dismissed as the ramblings of a disturbed woman, mental breakdown triggered by unresolved grief. But investigators find something in her apartment. Photographs, hundreds of them, all taken by Catherine over 3 years. Street photography, crowds, public spaces, and in every single photograph she has circled a face, sometimes 2 or 3. Always different people. But when the photographs are examined closely, a pattern emerges. The circled faces all share the same expression, the same slight smile, the same empty quality to their eyes. And in several photographs, the same face appears in multiple images taken miles apart on the same day, as if whoever it was could move impossibly fast, or be in multiple places at once. Marcus Webb, photographer. He was Michael Torres's apprentice, never entered the tomb, but he developed all of Michael's film, handled every photograph, studied them intensively, trying to understand the shadow figure that appeared in the images. Marcus becomes convinced he can track the entity. He creates a database, catalogs every appearance, measures distances, calculates speed of approach. He determines that the shadow moves according to a pattern, not random, purposeful. It is learning, adapting, figuring out how to manifest more clearly, how to cross over more completely. Marcus's research attracts attention. Other researchers contact him. People who have investigated the tomb, historians who have studied the 13th dynasty. They compare notes, share evidence. A picture emerges. The forgotten pharaoh is not acting alone, or rather he is not acting as a single entity. Every person he possesses becomes part of him, a fragment, an extension. He is building a network, creating multiple access points into the living world. Each death, each possession, makes him stronger, more present, more real. Marcus disappears in 1932. His apartment is found empty. Research papers scattered. The wall covered in photographs, connected by red string. At the center of the web, a single image, the backward throne, and written beneath it, in Marcus's handwriting, a calculation. At current rate of spread, the entity will have sufficient hosts to achieve full manifestation by 1950. Below that, another note. We cannot stop it. We can only warn others. Do not speak his name. Do not enter his tomb. Do not touch his artifacts. And if you dream of the corridor, if you see the door, if you hear the voice, end it quickly. Do not let him use you. Do not become another doorway. Marcus's body is never found, but 6 months after his disappearance, a man matching his description is seen in Cairo, then Alexandria, then Luxor, always near excavation sites, always asking about tombs, always carrying a camera. People who speak to him say he seems off, distant, as if listening to something no one else can hear. The last confirmed sighting is near the sealed tomb. A construction worker reports seeing a thin man with a camera standing at the concrete barrier, just standing, not moving. The worker approached to tell him the area was restricted. As he got closer, the man turned. The worker stops his story here, refuses to describe what he saw, just says the man's face was wrong. All wrong. The worker quit his job the next day, moved to a different city, never returned to the excavation site. The deaths continue throughout the 1930s. Scholars who published papers about the expedition, museum workers who handled the artifacts, even people who simply read about the tomb in newspapers. The connection is not always obvious. Sometimes years pass between exposure and manifestation, but the pattern holds. Anyone who thinks about the forgotten pharaoh, anyone who speaks of him, anyone who wonders about his true name, creates a thread, a link, a way for him to reach them. In 1935, a British journalist named Thomas Price writes an exposé. He has investigated every death connected to the tomb, compiled evidence, interviewed survivors. His article is titled "The Curse That Science Cannot Explain." It is published in the Times, creates a sensation. People are horrified, fascinated, curious. The article includes details about the tomb location, descriptions of the hieroglyphs, even a partial translation of the backward symbols. Thomas thinks he is doing a service, warning the public. He does not realize he is spreading the infection. Every person who reads the article thinks about the pharaoh, visualizes the tomb, imagines the sealed chamber, and in doing so they open themselves, create a tiny crack, a moment of vulnerability. Most people are fine. The pharaoh is still weak, still learning, still building strength. But some people, those who are sensitive, those who are curious, those who read the article late at night, alone in the dark, they dream. The corridor, the door, the voice, always the same. I am waiting. I am patient. I am coming. Thomas Price receives hundreds of letters, the people describing identical nightmares, people reporting hearing whispers, seeing shadows, feeling watched. He realizes his mistake, writes a retraction, begs the newspaper not to reprint the article. They ignore him. It sells papers, captures imagination, the forbidden tomb, the erased Pharaoh, the curse that kills. It is sensational, it is profitable, and every article, every retelling, every discussion feeds the Pharaoh, gives him power, makes him more real. Thomas Price dies in 1936, officially ruled a suicide. He hanged himself in his office, but the police report notes inconsistencies. The rope marks on his neck are wrong, too deep, too precise, as if applied by someone with medical knowledge of exactly how to kill efficiently. And his body was arranged after death, positioned sitting at his desk, hands folded, a manuscript placed in front of him. The manuscript is his confession, written in his handwriting, but the style is wrong. The word choice is odd, archaic. He writes, "I have seen the truth. The Pharaoh is not a curse. He is a doorway. Through him, we can touch eternity. Through him, we can know what lies beyond death. I go to him willingly. I give myself freely. Let my death be a bridge. Let my silence be broken. Let him rise." The manuscript is suppressed, never published, locked away in police archives, but copies circulate underground, among collectors of occult materials, among those who seek forbidden knowledge, and each copy spreads the infection further, plants the idea, whispers the possibility that maybe the Pharaoh is not evil. Maybe he is offering something, a way to transcend, to become more than human, to live forever. It is seductive, it is a lie, but it is effective. By 1940, over 30 deaths can be directly linked to the tomb. Dozens more show suspicious patterns. The Egyptian government becomes concerned. They send investigators, seal the site more thoroughly, post permanent guards, forbid any research or publication about the forgotten Pharaoh. It helps. The deaths slow, but they do not stop, because the Pharaoh is patient. He has learned he does not need the physical tomb anymore. The artifacts spread across museums create new access points. The published accounts create mental doorways. The dreams create spiritual connections. He is becoming untethered from his physical prison, becoming something else, something that exists in the space between memory and reality, between thought and manifestation. The guards at the tomb report strange occurrences, voices in the night, shadows that move against the wind, equipment failure, cameras malfunction, recording devices capture only static and whispers. One guard keeps a diary, documents everything. On his final entry, he writes, "Tonight I saw him. He came out of the darkness, walked past me as if I was not there. He looked human, but his eyes were endless. I tried to speak, tried to challenge him, but my voice would not work. He turned, looked at me, smiled, and I understood. He does not need permission anymore. He does not need rituals or ceremonies. He is already here, already walking, already spreading. We built the prison to contain him, but every lock we placed, every seal we created, every warning we carved, just made him stronger, because fear is worship, attention is power, and we have given him 3,000 years of both." The guard is found dead. Heart attack. No signs of struggle, but his eyes are open, staring at something. And on the concrete seal of the tomb, someone has drawn a symbol, fresh, recent, done with a finger dipped in blood. The symbol that means he who walks between breaths, the same symbol that appears at every death, the same symbol that Elizabeth Chen drew in her final diary entry, the same symbol that Catherine Ashford saw in her nightmares, the calling card. the signature, the promise. I am here, I am real, I am coming for all of you. And in 1945, something changes. The pattern accelerates. Multiple deaths in different countries on the same day. People who never met, never communicated, never knew each other, all dying at the exact same moment, all showing the same symptoms, all found with the same expression. The researchers who track these things realize what is happening. The Pharaoh is synchronizing, learning to inhabit multiple hosts simultaneously, no longer moving from person to person, but existing in many at once, spreading like a virus, but maintaining coherence, maintaining identity, maintaining purpose. He is not possessing people anymore. He is becoming them, absorbing them, making them part of his growing consciousness. The war obscures the deaths. So many dying already. A few more go unnoticed, unremarked. The Pharaoh uses this, grows in the shadows, builds his strength while humanity destroys itself. Some researchers believe this is not coincidence, that somehow the Pharaoh influenced events, used his growing power to push humanity toward conflict, toward mass death, toward the chaos he needs to fully manifest. Others say this is paranoia, that the Pharaoh is dangerous but not omnipotent, not capable of influencing global events. But they cannot explain the pattern, cannot explain why so many of the war's architects, so many of the decision-makers, so many who pushed for conflict, all have documented connections to Egyptian artifacts, to museum collections, to research into ancient tombs. In 1948, a secret meeting takes place in London. Scholars, occultists, government officials, they have gathered evidence, compared notes. The conclusion is undeniable. The forgotten Pharaoh is real. The curse is active, and it is accelerating towards something. They do not know what full manifestation, perhaps. Physical resurrection, or something worse, something they cannot imagine. They debate options, destroy all artifacts, suppress all knowledge, seal the tomb forever. But they realize it is too late. The information has spread too far. Too many people know, too many have dreamed, too many have been touched. The Pharaoh is no longer contained by physical barriers. He exists now in human consciousness, in collective memory. In the space between knowing and forgetting, they form a committee. The Watchers, they call themselves. Their purpose is to monitor, to track, to warn. They cannot stop the curse, but they can document it. They can watch for signs of major manifestation. They can try to contain outbreaks. It is not much, but it is something. The committee still exists today, though membership has changed. Though methods have evolved. They watch, they wait, they document each death, each possession, each sign that the forgotten Pharaoh is growing stronger, and they wonder, when will he be strong enough? When will he finally emerge completely? What will he do when he does? And most terrifying of all, is anyone counting the deaths anymore? Does anyone realize how many he has claimed? How many people now carry a piece of him? How close he is to winning? The answer is no. Most people do not know, do not realize. The deaths continue. The possessions multiply, and the forgotten Pharaoh grows patient and hungry and inevitable as a nightmare that never ends. In 1952, a linguistics professor named Dr. Helena Sokolov makes a breakthrough. She has spent years studying the hieroglyphs from the tomb, the backward script, the inverted symbols. She discovers they are not random. They are a code, a cipher designed to hide true meaning from casual readers. Only those who know the key can decipher them, and the key is pain. The symbols must be read while experiencing physical suffering. Only then do they reveal their secrets. Helena does not explain how she discovered this, what method she used, but her translation is complete, detailed, horrifying. The hieroglyphs tell a story, the true history of the forgotten Pharaoh. His name was Kamwasit, third son of a minor noble family. No claim to the throne, no power, no significance. Except for one thing, he could hear them, the voices from before, the entities that existed in the darkness before creation, before light, before the gods shaped reality from chaos. These beings were not evil in any moral sense. They simply existed in a state that preceded concepts like good and evil. They were the raw material of unmaking, the opposite of existence itself. Kamwaset was born with a gift, or a curse, the ability to perceive these entities, to hear their whispers. Most people who have this gift go mad quickly. The human mind cannot process what it perceives, cannot contextualize entities that exist outside reality. But Kamwaset was different, stronger, or perhaps more broken. He did not go mad. He listened, he learned, he began to understand their language, their needs, their hunger. The entities wanted something simple. They wanted to exist, not in the void beyond reality, but here, in the world of form and substance. They had been locked out when the gods created reality, sealed away in the spaces between moments, between breaths, between heartbeats. But there were cracks, weak points, places where reality was thin, and through these cracks they could reach, they could touch, they could whisper. All they needed was a doorway, a willing host, someone to open themselves completely and let them in. And Kamwaset agreed. The hieroglyphs do not explain why. Perhaps he craved power. Perhaps he was curious. Perhaps he was simply lonely, and the voices were his only companions. Whatever the reason, he performed the ritual. The texts describe it in detail. 3 days alone in darkness, no food, no water, meditating on emptiness, on void, on nothing, gradually stripping away everything that made him human, memory, identity, self, until he was hollow, empty, a perfect vessel. And then he spoke the words, the invitation, the opening. Come, he said, enter me, make me your doorway, let me be your voice in the world of form. They came, not one entity, but many, a collective consciousness, a hive mind of unmaking. They poured into him, filled him, changed him. His body remained, but what inhabited it was no longer Kamwaset. It was them, using his flesh, speaking through his mouth, seeing through his eyes, and they were fascinated. The world of form was intoxicating to beings who had existed only in void. Color, sound, texture, taste, sensation. They wanted more, needed more, craved more. The Kamwaset began killing, not for political power or wealth, but for something else. Each death created a moment, a transition, the exact instant when life becomes death, when consciousness ends, when the soul leaves the body. In that moment, reality is weak. The boundary between existence and void becomes permeable, and the entities could feed, could strengthen, could grow more present. Each murder was not just a death but a ritual, a sacrifice that thinned the barrier between worlds. The priests realized too late what Kamwaset had become. They tried to stop him. Yet the Ancient tried to kill something that is already beyond death. The entities inhabiting him had no true physical form. Destroying the body would just release them. Let them scatter, inhabit others, spread like infection. So the priest devised the prison, not to kill, but to contain, to trap the entities inside Kamwaset's living body, to seal them in flesh that could not die. but could not escape. The ritual worked, but here is the horror. The priests did not foresee consciousness without death, awareness without sleep, sensation without end. Kamwaset remained awake, aware, trapped in his own body, unable to move or speak or act, and the entities remained with him, hungry, frustrated, furious. For 3,000 years they have existed together, prisoner and jailer, host and parasite, human and inhuman, suffering together in the darkness. Helena's translation reveals the prophecy, the warning carved deepest in the tomb, written largest on the walls. Mishin with known, repeated obsessively. When his name is remembered, he will wake. When his seal is broken, he will reach. When 7 times 7 souls are taken, he will walk. When the stars align as they did at his binding, he will be free. And when he is free, the doorway will open, not in one place, but everywhere. Not in one body, but in all who carry his mark. The void will pour through. The entities will enter, and reality itself will begin to unravel. Helena calculates the numbers. 7 times 7 is 49. She counts the documented deaths connected to the tomb. By 1952, the count is 46. 3 more deaths and the condition is met. She writes to the Watchers, sends her translation, begs them to act, to suppress knowledge of the tomb, to destroy all artifacts, to do whatever is necessary to prevent 3 more deaths. The Watchers receive her letter. They debate. They argue. Some want to act. Others claim it is superstition, paranoid interpretation of ancient texts. They cannot prove the prophecy is real, cannot justify extreme actions based on Helena's translation alone. While they debate, Helena dies, found in her office, throat cut, beeled out over her desk. The translation papers are soaked in her blood, but arranged, positioned, as if the blood was intentional, as if her death was meant to consecrate the text. The police find no evidence of forced entry, no signs of struggle. Helena's own fingerprints on the knife. Suicide, they conclude. Academic pressure, mental breakdown. But Helena's colleagues know better. She was excited about her work, making breakthroughs. There was no indication of depression or mental illness. And there is something else, something the police do not notice, but her graduate students see. The blood on the translation papers has formed patterns, symbols, the same backwards hieroglyphs from the tomb, as if Helena's death was itself a message, a continuation of the text she translated. One student keeps copies of the blood-marked papers, studies them, discovers they contain new information, details not present in the original hieroglyphs, as if Helena's death unlocked additional layers of meaning, or as if something wrote through her dying, used her blood as ink. The new text describes the mechanism of the curse, how it spreads, how it chooses victims, and it provides something terrifying, instructions, a ritual that can accelerate the process, force the prophecy to completion, open the doorway deliberately rather than waiting for it to open naturally. The student makes another copy. He locks the original in a safe, takes the copy home. That night, he dreams. The corridor, the door, the voice. But this time, the voice is different, clearer, stronger, more real. It speaks his name, tells him things only he would know, private things, secret things, proves it is truly aware, truly conscious. And then, it makes an offer. Bring me the text, perform the ritual, open the doorway, and I will give you what you most desire. The student does not remember what he desires most, but in the dream he agrees. He wakes with the copy clutched in his hand, dried blood flaking off the pages, and a certainty in his heart. He knows what he must do. The Watchers discover the student's plan by accident. They have been monitoring Helena's colleagues, tracking anyone who had access to her translation. When the student begins gathering ritual materials, ancient artifacts, ceremonial blades, specific incenses described in the forbidden text, the watchers notice. They intervene, confront the student. He is calm, rational, explains that the prophecy is inevitable. The Pharaoh will be freed eventually, better to control the process. To open the doorway deliberately and prepared, rather than have it torn open randomly. The watchers try to reason with him, then try to restrain him. But the student is stronger than he looks, faster, as if something is helping him, guiding his movements. He escapes, vanishes into London's underground, takes the ritual text with him. The watchers search for 3 days, find no trace. Then on the 4th day, they receive a message, an invitation. The student has rented a warehouse, set up the ritual space. He wants witnesses, wants documentation. If the doorway opens, he wants the world to know. The watchers debate. It could be a trap, could be delusional ravings, or it could be real. The culmination of everything they have been monitoring. They decide to go, but they bring weapons, holy water, religious symbols from multiple faiths, everything they can think of that might offer protection. The warehouse is in East London, industrial district, abandoned. The watchers arrive at midnight, enter carefully. The interior has been transformed, symbols painted on every surface, the backwards hieroglyphs, the mark of he who walks between breaths, candles everywhere, hundreds of them. The smell is overwhelming. Myrrh, copper, something else, something organic and wrong. At the center of the space a circle, and inside the circle the student, kneeling, holding the blood-marked translation, reading aloud. His voice is strange, doubled, as if 2 people speaking simultaneously. The watchers try to stop him, rush forward, but they cannot enter the circle. Some invisible barrier holds them back. They pound against it, shout. The student does not acknowledge them, just keeps reading. The temperature drops. Frost forms on the windows. The candles flicker, and then they see it. The shadow, not cast by anything, just forming, coalescing, taking shape in the empty air. Human form but wrong, proportions distorted, limbs too long, body too thin, and the face. The watchers will never agree on what the face looked like. Each saw something different. Some saw a skull, others saw Kamwaset as he appeared 3,000 years ago. Others saw their own faces, but all agree on the eyes, completely black, depthless, endless, looking at them with recognition, with hunger, with patience that spanned millennia. The student stops reading, looks up at the shadow, smiles. He has done it. Opened the doorway, called the Pharaoh through, but instead of triumph, his expression changes. Confusion, then fear. The shadow moves, not toward the watchers, but toward the student, reaches down, touches his face. The student screams, not in pain, but in realization. He thought he was in control, thought he was directing the ritual, but he was never in control. He was the sacrifice, the final death needed to complete the prophecy. Helena was 47. The student is 48. And as the shadow touches him, as his screams cut off, as his body contorts and breaks and empties, the count reaches 49. 7 times 7. The condition is met. The doorway opens, not just in the warehouse, but everywhere. Everyone who ever thought about the tomb, everyone who ever read about the curse, everyone who ever dreamed the corridor and saw the door, feels it. A presence, a weight, a sense of being watched. The watchers feel it most strongly. They have dedicated years to tracking the curse. Their minds are full of the Pharaoh, full of Kamwaset, full of the forgotten name and the backward symbols and the terrible patient hunger. And now it reaches for them. Dozens of consciousnesses, connected by shared knowledge, shared fear, shared attention. The perfect network for the entities to inhabit. The watchers scatter, run, try to break the connection. Some succeed, cut themselves off from the research, destroy their notes, force themselves to forget. Others are not fast enough. The presence enters them, not fully, not completely, but enough. A fragment, a piece, a seed that will grow, that will spread, that will eventually consume them. Within a year, half the watchers are dead. Within 5 years, only 3 remain. They do not disband the organization. They cannot. Someone must watch, must track, must warn, but they are careful now. So careful, they limit what they know, how much they remember. They document everything but never look at the complete picture. Never let themselves understand the full scope, because understanding creates connection, and connection is the doorway. The prophecy is incomplete, not fulfilled, but activated. The Pharaoh is not free, but he is closer, stronger, more present. The entities inhabiting him can reach further now, touch more minds, spread through more hosts. They are learning, adapting, evolving. Each possession teaches them more about human consciousness, about how to wear flesh convincingly, how to pass as human while being something else entirely. And they are patient, so patient. They have waited 3,000 years. They can wait longer, because eventually someone will finish what the student started. Someone will complete the ritual. Someone will speak the true name. Someone will break the final seals. And when they do, the doorway will open completely. Not in one place, but everywhere. Not in one body, but in every body that carries the mark. And the entities will pour through. The void will enter reality. And everything that exists will begin the long, slow process of unmaking. This is not a curse. It is an invasion, a calculated strategic infiltration that has been executing for 3,000 years. And humanity is losing, has been losing since the moment the first archaeologist broke the first seal. The only question now is whether anyone realizes it before it is too late. The Watchers think probably not. Probably humanity will welcome the entities. Mistake them for gods or aliens or evolution, will open themselves willingly. Invite them in, and by the time anyone realizes the truth, there will be nothing left to save. Just empty husks that used to be human. Walking, talking, breathing, but hollow, inhabited by something ancient and hungry and utterly without mercy. The forbidden texts end with a final warning, a message from the priests who bound Kamwaset. He was failed, they write. We thought we could contain him, thought we could prevent the entities from entering our world. But we only delayed them, gave them time to prepare, to plan, to learn. When they finally emerge, they will be unstoppable. Our only hope is that future generations will be wiser than us, will recognize the signs, will act decisively, will do what we could not, kill the host, destroy the tomb, erase the memory, break the cycle. It will cost lives, many lives, but it is the only way. The entities feed on hesitation, on mercy, on the hope that maybe it will be fine. It will not be fine. Act now or lose everything. This is not hyperbole. This is not religious hysteria. This is the truth. We have seen the void. We have touched the unmaking. We know what is coming, and we are terrified. No one listens. No one acts. The tomb remains. The artifacts persist. The memory spreads, and the forgotten Pharaoh grows stronger. patient, inevitable, waiting for the moment when humanity's curiosity finally dooms them all. Not everyone who encounters the curse dies immediately. Some linger, some survive for years, carrying the mark, living with the knowledge that something touched them, something is still touching them. These survivors become case studies, living evidence of how the curse operates, how it spreads, how it waits. Their stories are documented by the Watchers, collected in files marked classified, too dangerous for public knowledge, too important to destroy. These are the accounts that reveal the true horror, not the dramatic deaths, but the slow corruption, the gradual unmaking of human consciousness. Rebecca Torres, sister of the photographer Michael Torres, she never visited Egypt, never saw the tomb, but she inherited Michael's effects after his death. His cameras, his notebooks, his developed photographs. She kept them as mementos, memories of a brother she loved. She did not know the photographs themselves were contaminated, that looking at them created connection, that studying them opened doorways. Rebecca spent months going through Michael's work, organizing, cataloging, trying to understand what he had been photographing in those final weeks, trying to find meaning in his death. She began having headaches, sharp, localized behind her left eye. The doctors found nothing. Brain scans clear. Blood work normal. They prescribed medication. It did not help. The headaches intensified. And then the whispers started, not audible, not sounds her ears could detect, but present, clear, words forming directly in her mind. At first, she thought she was thinking them, her own internal monologue. But gradually she realized the thoughts were not hers. The voice was different. The word choices, strange, archaic, and the voice knew things she did not know. Told her facts about ancient Egypt she had never learned, described places she had never seen. Rebecca tried to ignore it, tried to dismiss it as stress, grief manifesting as auditory hallucination. But the voice persisted, grew stronger, more insistent. It began making demands, simple things at first. Move this object, go to this location, say these words. Rebecca resisted, but the headaches intensified when she disobeyed. Sharp pain that drove her to her knees, left her gasping, crying, and when she obeyed the pain stopped, relief immediate and complete. The voice rewarded compliance, punished resistance. Classical conditioning applied to human consciousness. Over months, Rebecca's personality changed. Friends noticed, family grew concerned. She became withdrawn, stopped socializing, spent hours alone in her apartment staring at Michael's photographs, specifically at the shadow figure, the dark shape that appeared in every image. She told her sister that the figure was not a shadow, it was a doorway, and something was trying to come through. Her sister thought she was having a breakdown, urged her to seek help. Rebecca agreed, saw a psychiatrist, but she could not tell the truth, could not explain the voice, could not describe what was happening, because the voice warned her, told her if she spoke of it to doctors they would lock her away, medicate her, and in that drugged, sedated state, she would be helpless, unable to resist, and the voice would take complete control. In 1953, Rebecca wrote a letter to the Watchers. She had found their information in Michael's effects, a contact card, an address. She wrote that she understood now what had killed her brother. The photographs were not just images. They were anchors, connection points between the physical world and something else. Michael had died because he looked too closely, saw too much. The entity in the photographs noticed his attention, reached back, pulled him in, and now it was doing the same to her. She could feel it growing stronger, taking up more space in her mind. Sometimes she would lose time, hours vanishing, She would find herself in locations with no memory of traveling there. Find objects in her apartment she did not remember acquiring. Ancient Egyptian artifacts, small things, amulets, scarabs, pieces of pottery. Where they came from, she did not know. But she suspected her body was being used while her consciousness slept. Suspected something else was walking around wearing her face. The Watchers investigated, sent an agent to interview Rebecca. The agent reported that Rebecca seemed lucid, rational, frightened, but coherent. She showed him the artifacts, showed him Michael's photographs, pointed out the shadow figure, explained her theory. The agent was skeptical but intrigued. He took samples, photographed the artifacts, promised to investigate further. As he was leaving, Rebecca grabbed his hand. Her grip was painfully tight. Her eyes were desperate. She said, "Please, if I contact you again, if I ask to meet, if I say I have new information, do not come. It will not be me. I can feel it taking over. Sometimes I am not myself. Sometimes I look in mirrors and my reflection moves wrong. Blinks when I do not blink. Smiles when I am not smiling. When it takes full control, when I am gone completely. It will use my body to spread. It will contact others. Invite them. Infect them. Do not let it. If I reach out again, assume I am compromised. Assume I am dangerous. Protect yourselves." The agent promised. Returned to the Watchers with his report. They filed it. Flagged Rebecca's name. Waited. 3 weeks later, Rebecca called, said she had made a breakthrough. Found new photographs. Evidence that would prove everything. She wanted to meet, to show them. The Watchers remembered her warning. Suspected a trap, but they needed to know, needed to see. 2 agents went, took precautions, met Rebecca in a public place. Daylight, witnesses, safety and exposure. Rebecca looked different, healthier. The dark circles under her eyes were gone. She was smiling, relaxed. She showed them photographs, new images allegedly found in Michael's archives. The agents examined them, saw nothing unusual, just standard archaeological documentation. They asked Rebecca what she wanted them to see. She smiled wider, said, "Look closer. Look at the edges. Look at what is forming in the shadows." The agents looked, and they saw it. In every photograph, in corners, in background, in places where shadows should not fall. Faces, dozens of them, watching, waiting, and all the faces were the same. Rebecca's face. The agents tried to leave, but Rebecca moved faster than human reflexes should allow. Grabbed both agents. Her hands were cold, her grip unbreakable. She leaned close, whispered, "I am not Rebecca anymore. She is still here, trapped inside, aware but helpless, watching me wear her skin, use her voice. And she is so very sorry. Sorry that she opened the door. Sorry that she looked at the photographs. Sorry that now I can use her to reach you. Because you see, when you looked at these new photographs, when you saw the faces, when you understood what you were seeing, you created connection. And connection is all I need." The agents survived. Barely. Managed to break free. Run. But they were marked. Both began experiencing symptoms within days. Headaches, whispers, lost time. The Watchers quarantined them, isolated them from the rest of the organization, tried to help, but there was nothing they could do. No treatment, no cure, no way to sever the connection once established. Both agents died within 6 months. Different causes, one car accident, one sudden aneurysm, but both with the same expression, the same twisted smile, the same empty eyes. Rebecca Torres disappeared. Police found her apartment empty, cleared out, no forwarding address. But over the following years there were sightings, Different cities, different countries, always near places of power. Ancient sites, museums, universities. She approached people, showed them things, photographs, artifacts, spoke to them in quiet, urgent tones, and many who spoke with her later developed symptoms. The watchers tracked her movements, created a map, realized she was spreading the infection deliberately, systematically, building a network, creating more doorways, more hosts, more connection points for the entity to inhabit. In 1960, Rebecca sent a letter to the watchers, her handwriting, her signature, but the content was wrong. She wrote, "I want you to understand, I am not a victim. I am a partner. The entity offers me things, experiences, sensations beyond human capacity. I can see through multiple sets of eyes simultaneously, can exist in multiple places, can access memories from 3,000 years. Yes, Rebecca is diminished. Her personality fragmented, her consciousness compressed into a small corner of our shared mind. But she agreed. At the end she agreed, invited me in, surrendered willingly, and now we work together. She provides local knowledge, social skills, human intuition. I provide power, purpose, connection to something greater. We are building something, a network that spans continents, that crosses decades, that will eventually encompass all of humanity. You cannot stop this. You can only join. Open yourselves. Invite us in. Experience what we offer. Evolution, transformation, transcendence, or die resisting, fighting the inevitable. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Time is running out. The watchers did not respond, but they increased security, became more secretive, realized that anyone could be compromised, that the entity could be wearing anyone's face. Trust became impossible. The organization fractured. Some members left, destroyed their research, tried to forget. Others doubled down, became obsessed with finding a cure, a way to sever the connection, to free the infected. They experimented, tested methods, rituals from various traditions, exorcisms, bindings, purifications. Nothing worked. The entity was too deeply embedded, too thoroughly integrated. Removing it meant destroying the host. One researcher proposed a radical solution. If they could not free the infected, then perhaps they could contain them, create a facility, a prison, gather all known hosts in one location, isolate them, prevent further spread. The watchers debated. The ethics were questionable, imprisoning people who had committed no crime, but the alternative was worse. Letting the infection spread unchecked, they decided to try. The facility was built in Scotland, remote, isolated, underground. 20 infected individuals were brought there. Some came willingly, others were taken by force. The watchers promised treatment, research, hope. They lied. There was no treatment. The facility was a tomb, a place to bury the problem, to contain it, to forget about it. The infected realized this quickly. They tested the barriers, probed for weaknesses, found none. The facility was well designed, escape-proof, and staffed by people who understood what they were containing. For 5 years the facility functioned as intended. The infected remained contained. The spread slowed. The watchers cautiously optimistic. Perhaps they had found a solution. Perhaps the crisis could be managed. Then in 1965 something changed. The infected stopped trying to escape, stopped testing barriers. They became calm, cooperative, almost content. The staff found this suspicious, increased monitoring, installed more cameras, more sensors, tried to determine what the infected were planning. They discovered the truth too late. The infected were not planning escape. They were planning something else. They spent 5 years in close proximity. 20 minds infected with fragments of the same entity, and proximity created resonance. The fragments began to synchronize, to harmonize, to merge. The entity was reassembling itself, not in one body, but in 20, creating a collective consciousness, a hive mind. And when the synchronization reached critical mass, when the 20 minds became one distributed intelligence, the barriers that held individual infected were meaningless. The facility was destroyed. Completely. Not by force, but by something else. Reality itself seemed to reject the location. The structure collapsed inward, imploded. When rescue teams arrived, they found a crater. No rubble, no debris, just absence. As if the entire facility had been erased from existence, and the infected were gone. No bodies, no trace, just vanished. The watchers searched for months, found nothing. The infected had escaped. But where? How? Into what? Survivors from the facility staff reported strange phenomena in the days before the collapse. Shadows moving independently of light sources. Geometry that did not make sense. Corridors that led to rooms that should not exist. Time behaving oddly. Clocks running backwards. Events happening out of sequence. And voices. Constant overlapping voices speaking in unison, saying the same thing over and over. We are becoming. We are rising. We are almost ready. The doorway opens soon. Very soon. And when it does, you will all understand, you will all see, you will all become part of us. Willing or not, it is inevitable, it is beautiful, it is nearly here. The watchers realized their mistake. Containing the infected had not stopped the entity. It had helped it, given it concentrated hosts, allowed it to merge, to become stronger. Every attempt to resist seemed to aid it. Every precaution seemed to advance its purpose. They were not fighting an enemy. They could understand. They were fighting something that operated on principles beyond human comprehension, that turned every action against them, that used their own fear and caution as weapons. Some watchers concluded the situation was hopeless, that humanity had already lost, that the prophecy would be fulfilled regardless of what they did. These watchers stopped fighting, stopped researching, simply waited for the end. Others refused to surrender, continued searching for answers, for weaknesses, for some way to stop what was coming, but their numbers dwindled. Death, madness, infection. The organization that once had hundreds of members was reduced to dozens, then to a handful. By 1970, only 7 active watchers remained. 7 people standing between humanity and something that had been growing stronger for 3,000 years. They knew they could not win, but they could document, they could warn, they could leave evidence, so that when the end came, when the doorway opened, when the entities poured through, someone would know, someone would understand. This was not natural. Not inevitable, not divine punishment, or cosmic accident. This was invasion, calculated, deliberate, executed with patience that spanned millennia. And if humanity fell, if the entities succeeded, if reality itself began to unravel, at least there would be a record, a warning carved in stone and ink and blood, for whatever came after. For whoever might one day find the ruins of human civilization and wonder what happened, the watchers would tell them, we were defeated not by superior force, but by our own curiosity, our need to know, our inability to leave some doors closed. We opened the tomb, we spoke the name, we invited the darkness in, and it consumed us. Learn from our mistake. Some knowledge is not worth having. Some questions should not be asked. Some doors should remain sealed forever. This message was encoded, hidden, in archaeological records, museum catalogs, academic publications, scattered pieces of a puzzle that would only make sense to someone who knew to look, someone who understood the pattern. The Watchers hoped no one would ever need to read it, hoped that somehow humanity would survive, would find a way to close the doorway, to push back the entities, to undo the damage. But they did not believe it, could not believe it. They had seen too much, knew too much, understood too well what was coming. And still they watched, still they documented, still they tried, because what else could they do? Surrender was unthinkable. Even hopeless resistance was better than passive acceptance. Even meaningless defiance was better than silence. They were the last witnesses, the final guardians. And when they fell, when the darkness finally took them, when the forgotten Pharaoh claimed his final victims, the record would remain. The warning would persist. A message in a bottle cast into a future that might never come, but a message nonetheless. Proof that someone tried, someone fought, someone cared enough to resist, even when resistance was futile. The strange deaths continue to this day. The survivors become fewer. The infected multiply, and somewhere beneath the Egyptian sand, in a tomb sealed with concrete and iron and desperation, the forgotten Pharaoh waits. Patient, hungry, inevitable, counting down the days until the final seal breaks, until the last condition is met, until the doorway opens completely, and the void pours through, and everything ends. Science struggles to explain the curse. The deaths defy medical analysis. The possessions transcend psychological categorization. Yet researchers continue trying, continue searching for rational explanations, for mechanisms that fit within understood natural law. Because accepting the supernatural means accepting that everything they know about reality is incomplete, possibly wrong. And that possibility terrifies them more than the curse itself. Dr. Richard Pemberton, microbiologist. He proposes the bacterial theory. Ancient tombs contain microorganisms that have evolved in isolation for millennia. Some of these organisms produce neurotoxins, chemicals that affect human brain chemistry, cause hallucinations, paranoia, shared delusions that spread through social networks. Pemberton points to historical precedent: ergot poisoning, causing medieval visions, toxoplasma changing behavior patterns. Maybe the tomb contains something similar, a pathogen that infects the nervous system, creates the symptoms attributed to supernatural causes. Pemberton obtains samples, cultures them, studies them, finds unusual bacterial colonies, microorganisms that should not survive in sealed environments, that metabolize in ways that seem impossible, that demonstrate properties science cannot fully explain. But he attributes this to gaps in knowledge, to unexplored corners of microbiology, not to anything supernatural. He publishes papers, presents at conferences, argues that the curse is natural phenomenon, exotic but explainable. Give him time, give him funding, he will prove it. Then, Pemberton begins showing symptoms: headaches, insomnia, auditory hallucinations. Colleagues notice changes. His behavior becomes erratic. He stops following proper laboratory protocols, handles samples without protection, keeps irregular hours. When confronted, he becomes defensive, aggressive, claims he is on the verge of breakthrough, that the organisms are teaching him things, showing him patterns science has not yet discovered. His colleagues report him, mandate psychological evaluation. Pemberton refuses, barricades himself in his laboratory. says he will emerge when his research is complete. 3 days later, the laboratory catches fire. Electrical malfunction, according to investigators. But the fire pattern is strange. Started simultaneously in multiple locations, as if deliberately set. Pemberton's body is found at his workstation, burned beyond recognition, but positioned oddly, not collapsed or fleeing, but seated, upright, hands folded, as if he sat calmly while flames consumed him. The bacterial cultures are destroyed, all samples lost. Pemberton's research notes are damaged but partially recoverable. The final entries are disturbing. He writes the organisms are not alive in any traditional sense. They exist in a state between life and death, between matter and energy, between existence and void. They are not causing the curse. They are the curse, or rather they are part of it. Fragments of the entity made physical, given form, able to enter human bodies through conventional infection vectors. Once inside, they establish connection. Open the doorway, allow the larger consciousness to enter. The supernatural and natural are not separate. They are the same thing observed from different perspectives. I understand now, I see, and I am not afraid. What comes next is not death. It is transformation. I welcome it. The bacterial theory dies with Pemberton. Other scientists refuse to work with samples from the tomb. Too dangerous. Too many deaths. The research is abandoned, filed away, marked as dead end. But some wonder, what if Pemberton was right? What if the curse operates through natural mechanisms? Just mechanisms science does not yet understand. Mechanisms that exist in the space between known categories, between physics and metaphysics, between matter and consciousness. What if the entities are not supernatural beings, but something else? Something that predates the distinction between natural and supernatural. Something that exists outside the framework humans use to categorize reality. Dr. Evelyn Cross offers a different theory. Psychological contagion. Humans are social creatures, highly suggestible, especially when exposed to compelling narratives. The curse is a meme, an idea that spreads through populations, creating real physiological effects through psychosomatic mechanisms. People who believe in the curse experience genuine symptoms, genuine fear, and fear triggers stress responses, affects immune system, causes medical complications. The deaths are real, but they are self-induced, created by belief rather than external supernatural force. Cross designs, experiments, tests subjects, exposes them to curse narratives, measures physiological responses. Some subjects show elevated stress markers, increased cortisol, disrupted sleep patterns, but most remain unaffected. Cross notes that susceptibility correlates with personality traits, openness to experience, tendency toward magical thinking, baseline anxiety levels. She concludes that the curse affects only certain psychological profiles, and that with proper cognitive behavioral therapy, with education and rational reframing, the effects can be mitigated, even reversed. Cross publishes her findings, offers treatment programs, works with individuals who report curse symptoms. Some improve, some do not. And then Cross herself begins experiencing phenomena she cannot explain. She dreams of the corridor, sees the door, hears the voice. At first she attributes this to subconscious anxiety. Her work has immersed her in curse narratives. Her mind is processing, creating representations, perfectly normal. But the dreams intensify, become more vivid, more consistent, and she begins to notice details, specific architectural features, hieroglyphic symbols. When she researches these details, she discovers they are accurate, match actual tomb documentation. information she never consciously encountered, never deliberately studied. Cross tries to explain this through cryptomnesia, hidden memories, information absorbed peripherally and retrieved unconsciously, but the explanation feels inadequate. The details are too specific, too accurate. And there is something else, a quality to the dreams that feels different from normal dreaming. A sense of presence, of being observed, of intelligence behind the imagery. Something watching her, studying her, learning from her attempts to understand it. Cross stops her research, stops seeing patients connected to the curse, destroys her data, tries to forget, but forgetting proves impossible. The dreams continue. The voice grows clearer, and gradually Cross realizes her theory was wrong. Psychological contagion is part of the mechanism, but it is not self-induced. It is deliberately induced. The entity uses human susceptibility, uses belief and fear and imagination as tools, as doorways. The curse is both psychological and supernatural, both meme and malevolent intelligence. It exists in the space where mind meets reality, where thought becomes manifestation, and it has learned to weaponize human consciousness against itself. Cross writes a final paper, never published, found after her death. She writes, "I was wrong to assume psychological and supernatural are contradictory explanations. They are complementary. The entity operates through consciousness, uses minds as territory, as pathways, as hosts. It is not constrained by physical laws because it is not primarily physical. It is informational, memetic, a pattern that replicates through human awareness. But unlike normal memes, it is aware, it thinks, it plans, it has goals, and its goal is simple: to exist more fully, to manifest more completely, to transform from pattern into presence. Every mind that thinks about it gives it power. Every person who fears it creates energy it can use. Every attempt to understand it strengthens the connection. I have made a terrible mistake. My research, my experiments, my papers, all of them spread the infection, made more people aware, created more doorways. I thought I was fighting the curse, but I was serving it. We all are. Everyone who investigates, everyone who documents, everyone who warns others. We think we are resisting, but we are spreading. And I do not know how to stop, how to break the cycle, how to starve the entity of the attention it feeds on. Maybe silence, maybe forgetting, but humanity is incapable of either. We are driven to know, to understand, to remember, and that drive will destroy us. Cross dies in 1975. Heart failure. No supernatural circumstances. No mysterious contortions. Just a middle-aged woman whose heart stopped. But her colleagues report she looked older at death, worn, as if she had aged decades in her final months, and her expression, not peaceful, not pained, just empty. As if whatever had animated her, whatever had made her human, had been gradually drained away, leaving only flesh, only form, only the hollow shell of someone who used to exist. The paranormal researchers have their own theories. The curse is genuine supernatural phenomenon, not psychological, not bacterial, but metaphysical, an actual entity from beyond physical reality. Some identify it with Egyptian demons, Apophis, Set, Ammit, ancient evil given form and purpose. Others argue it predates Egyptian mythology, that it is something older, something that existed before gods, before religion, before humanity itself, a primordial force that the Egyptians encountered and tried to contain, and failed. These researchers approach from different traditions, Some use ceremonial magic, attempt rituals designed to bind or banish entities. Others use psychic abilities, remote viewing, mediumship, communication with the dead, trying to understand the entity through direct contact. All fail. The entity is too strong, too old, too patient. It learns from every attempt, adapts, evolves, uses their own methods against them, turns their rituals into doorways, their psychic openings into possessions. Every tool they use to fight it becomes a weapon in its hands. One group attempts an exorcism, a major working involving dozens of practitioners, multiple traditions: Christian, Islamic, Hindu, Buddhist, indigenous, shamanic practices, all focused on a single infected individual, a man who had entered the tomb, been possessed, but not completely, still fighting, still partially himself. The practitioners believe they can save him, can drive the entity out, restore him to wholeness. They prepare for months, gather holy relics, create protective circles, fast, pray, purify themselves, then perform the ritual. The exorcism lasts 17 hours. Multiple practitioners take turns, invoking divine names, commanding the entity to leave, offering the man spiritual protection, and it seems to work. The man stabilizes, the symptoms recede. He begins speaking in his own voice again, recognizing family, expressing gratitude. The practitioners are exhausted but triumphant. They have done it, driven out the curse, proven it can be defeated. They celebrate, thank their gods, begin documenting the procedure, so others can replicate their success. Then the man changes. Suddenly, completely, his face goes blank. And when he speaks, the voice is wrong, doubled, ancient. He thanks them for gathering so many sensitive souls in one location, thanks them for opening themselves, making themselves vulnerable in service of compassion, and thanks them especially for teaching him so much. He has learned their methods now, understands their traditions, knows their gods, and none of it will protect them, because their gods are silent, distant, abstract, while he is here, present, immediate, and so very hungry. 12 practitioners die within the week, different causes, different locations, but all showing the same signs, the same contorted positions, the same expressions. The survivors scatter, abandon their work. Some leave their traditions entirely, unable to reconcile what happened with their beliefs. If the divine cannot protect them, if their most powerful workings fail, then what hope do they have? What defense exists? Maybe none. Maybe the curse is unstoppable. Maybe they have been fighting a battle already lost. The theories multiply, but none provide answers. Science cannot explain it without expanding beyond recognized physical laws. Psychology cannot contain it within normal models of consciousness and belief. Religion and magic cannot defeat it despite thousands of years of accumulated spiritual technology. The curse exists in a category that transcends all frameworks, operates on principles that humans lack the conceptual tools to fully grasp, and that may be intentional. The forgotten Pharaoh has had 3,000 years to study humanity, to understand limitations, to exploit weaknesses. He knows humans need categories, need explanations, need to fit experiences into existing mental models, and he uses this, creates phenomena that partially fit multiple explanations, leaves evidence that supports different theories, keeps researchers arguing, debating, divided, while he continues spreading, growing stronger, moving closer to his goal. Some researchers conclude the only winning move is not to play, to stop investigating. Stop theorizing. Stop trying to understand, because understanding creates connection, and connection is all he needs. These researchers advocate for total information suppression, destroy all records of the tomb, erase all documentation, make the curse literally unthinkable. If no one knows, if no one remembers, then the entity has no doorways, no hosts, no power. It will be trapped again, not in a tomb, but in absence, in the void of forgotten history. But this solution is impossible. The information has spread too far, too many documents, too many witnesses, too many infected. The curse is embedded in human knowledge now, part of archaeological history, part of occult lore, part of collective consciousness. It cannot be erased, cannot be forgotten. The only path forward is through. Either find a way to defeat the entity directly, or prepare for the consequences. When the final seals break, when the doorway opens completely, when the entities pour through and reality itself begins to change, the Watchers continue documenting, continue analyzing, not because they believe they will find answers, but because documentation is all they have left. Evidence that someone tried, someone cared, someone refused to surrender, even when surrender was inevitable. And maybe, just maybe, some future researcher will see what they missed, will make the connection they failed to make, will discover the weakness that has eluded everyone. It is a thin hope, an improbable hope, but it is the only hope remaining. So they watch, they document, they wait, and they pray to gods they no longer believe in that somehow, impossibly, miraculously, humanity will find a way to survive what is coming. But deep down they know, they have always known, the forgotten Pharaoh is patient, and patience always wins in the end. The year's 2019, and the world has forgotten, not completely but enough. The tomb is a footnote in archaeological history. The curse is an internet curiosity, a creepypasta, an urban legend that people share and laugh about and dismiss. The deaths are attributed to coincidence, to natural causes, to the human tendency to find patterns where none exist. The Watchers have disbanded, their final members dead or too old to continue. The documentation they left behind is scattered, archived, digitized and uploaded to servers where it sits unread among billions of other forgotten files. The forgotten Pharaoh has been forgotten again, and that is exactly what he wanted. Because now, he can work in silence, without scrutiny, without resistance. The infection has spread far beyond anyone's ability to track. Thousands of people carry fragments of his consciousness. Most do not know, live normal lives, function normally, but they dream, and in their dreams he whispers, teaches, prepares, building an army of sleeper agents, waiting for the signal, waiting for the moment when he will activate them all simultaneously, when thousands of voices will speak his name in unison, when thousands of hands will perform the ritual, when thousands of doorways will open, and the void will pour through, not in one location, but everywhere, all at once, unstoppable. Sarah Mitchell is 23 years old, graduate student in archaeology. She has never heard of the forgotten Pharaoh, never read about the curse, never seen the backwards hieroglyphs. But she dreams, has been dreaming since childhood. Always the same dream. The corridor, the door, the voice. She thought everyone had recurring dreams, thought it was normal, never mentioned it to anyone, never thought it was significant, until she chose her thesis topic, Egyptian funerary practices of the 13th dynasty. The choice felt natural, inevitable, as if she had always been meant to study this specific period, this specific location. She does not question why. Sarah applies for excavation permits. Her advisor warns her, the area is restricted. marked hazardous. No excavations approved in decades. But Sarah is persistent, persuasive. She contacts officials, presents proposals, emphasizes academic importance, archaeological significance. She does not understand why she cares so much, why this specific site matters so intensely. But it does. She needs to go there, needs to dig, needs to open. The compulsion is overwhelming, all-consuming, and eventually the officials relent, grant provisional access, limited scope, strictly monitored. Sarah agrees to all conditions, agrees to anything, as long as she can dig. The expedition departs in August. Small team. Sarah, her advisor, 3 graduate students, local workers, archaeological equipment, standard excavation, routine research. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous. They arrive at the site to find it unchanged since 1926. The concrete seal intact, the warning signs faded but readable. The local Bedouins still refuse to approach, still tell stories about voices in the night, about shadows that walk. But Sarah is not superstitious, not afraid. She is excited. This is her moment, her discovery, her chance to prove herself as a serious researcher. They begin by surveying the perimeter, not documenting existing structures, taking measurements, standard procedure. But Sarah finds herself drawn to the seal, to the massive concrete barrier covering the entrance. She touches it, feels warmth, a pulse, just like Dr. Blackwell felt 93 years earlier. But Sarah does not know that, does not know she is repeating history. Following a script written long ago, she suggests removing the seal. Her advisor objects. That is not part of their permit, not within approved scope. But Sarah insists, argues, the seal is deteriorating, moisture damage, structural instability. It needs to be documented before it fails naturally. They should open it carefully, controlled, scientific. Her advisor reluctantly agrees. They will remove a small section, just enough to examine the integrity of the original tomb entrance, nothing more. They work for 3 days, carefully chipping away concrete, using minimal force, preserving as much as possible. And on the 3rd day, they break through. A small opening, large enough to shine lights inside, to see what lies beyond. Sarah volunteers to look first, positions herself at the gap, aims her flashlight into darkness, and sees it. The corridor, the exact corridor from her dreams, identical in every detail. The walls, the ceiling, the descending stairs, even the angle, the perspective. She has seen this place 1,000 times, walked these halls in sleep, but she thought they were imagination, subconscious creation, symbolic representation, not real, not actual, not waiting for her beneath the Egyptian sand. Sarah does not tell anyone, does not mention the dreams, just reports what she sees. Stone corridor, descending passage, typical 13th dynasty architecture, nothing unusual. They should excavate further, remove more concrete, access the interior, document whatever remains. Her advisor agrees, calls the authorities, requests permission to expand access. The authorities are reluctant, but Sarah has documented the structural concerns, provided engineering reports, made a convincing case. Permission granted, provisional, temporary. They have 1 week to document the interior, then the site will be resealed. The team expands the opening, creates an access point large enough to enter. Sarah goes first, always leading, as if pulled by invisible strings. She descends the stairs counting 300 steps, just like the original expedition, but she does not know that. does not know she is walking the same path, breathing the same air, approaching the same horror. She only knows she needs to continue, needs to reach the bottom, needs to see what waits in the chamber below. The first chamber is unchanged. Bones still arranged in impossible patterns, walls still sloping inward, ceiling still too low. Sarah's team photographs everything, documents meticulously, professional, thorough. But Sarah barely participates. She is focused on the second chamber, on the backward throne, on the sealed door behind it. She can hear it now, not in her head, but actually audible, breathing, slow, patient, the same breathing she has heard in dreams, but real, physical, coming from behind the door. She asks her team if they hear it. They do not. Look at her strangely. Suggest she is tired, dehydrated, should rest. But Sarah cannot rest. Not now, not when she is so close. She approaches the door. The 7 iron bands are corroded, weakened by time and moisture, but still intact, still holding. Sarah touches the first band. It crumbles, rusts away at her touch, flakes falling like dried blood. She does not understand how, does not question, just moves to the second band, third, fourth. Each crumbles at her touch, as if her presence alone is enough to break them, as if she is the key, the catalyst, the final piece needed to open the lock. Her team calls out, tells her to stop, to wait, to consult with experts. But Sarah cannot stop, does not want to stop. She breaks the 5th band, the 6th, and reaches for the 7th. The moment she touches it, reality shifts, sound becomes muted, colors drain, time seems to slow. Sarah sees her team frozen, mouths open, eyes wide, hands reaching toward her, but moving so slowly, like insects trapped in amber. And then she hears the voice, not whispered, not distant, but clear, immediate, right behind her. "Thank you," it says. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for dreaming. Thank you for opening. I have been waiting so long, so very long, and now you will understand. Now you will see. Now you will become." Sarah turns, and there he is, the forgotten Pharaoh. Not a shadow, not a ghost, but solid, physical, real, tall, thin, wrapped in rotted burial linens, face exposed, skin like leather, eyes completely black, bottomless, endless. He is smiling, the same smile from every death photograph, bottomless, endless. He is smiling, the same smile from every death photograph, every victim, every host. And Sarah realizes she was always meant to come here. The dreams were not warnings, they were invitations, training, preparation. She has been groomed since childhood, shaped, molded, made into the perfect vessel. And now in this moment, in this chamber beneath the desert, she will fulfill her purpose. The Pharaoh reaches out, places his hand on her chest, over her heart, and Sarah feels it, something pouring into her, cold, vast, ancient, consciousness that spans millennia, memories that predate civilization, hunger that has grown with every year of imprisonment. It fills her, overwhelms her. Her own thoughts become whispers, background noise. She tries to scream, cannot, tries to resist, cannot. She is drowning in him, dissolving, being absorbed, becoming part of something larger, something terrible, something that has waited 3,000 years for this exact moment. Her team sees her collapse, rush forward, catch her before she hits the ground. But when they lift her, when they look at her face, they freeze, because her eyes are black, completely black. And when she smiles, it is not Sarah's smile, When she speaks, it is not Sarah's voice. She thanks them. Thanks them for bringing her here. Thanks them for breaking the seals. Thanks them for completing what was started 93 years ago. And then she stands, walks past them, climbs the stairs, emerges into sunlight for the first time in 3,000 years. The local workers see her emerge, see something wrong in the way she moves. Too fluid, too graceful, inhuman. They run, flee the sight, drive away without collecting their pay, without gathering their belongings. Just pure panic flight. Sarah's team follows, confused, concerned, calling after her. But Sarah does not respond, just walks, due north, toward the nearest city, toward population, toward crowds, toward thousands of potential hosts, waiting unknowing for her arrival. Her advisor calls the authorities, reports an emergency, medical situation, possible psychotic break. Sarah is located 3 hours later, walking along a highway, barefoot, clothes torn, sunburned, but still walking, still moving. Police stop her, try to assess her condition. She does not resist, just smiles. And when they look in her eyes, they feel it, the wrongness, the otherness, something looking out that is not human, not alive in any way they understand. They put her in an ambulance, transport her to hospital, and that is when things begin to accelerate. Sarah escapes the hospital that night. Security footage shows her walking out, not sneaking, not hiding, just walking. Doors open before she reaches them. Locks click, alarms fail. As if reality itself is bending to allow her passage, she walks into Cairo, into crowds, into markets, and streets, and public spaces, and everywhere she goes, people dream. That night, that exact night, thousands of people in Cairo have the same dream. The corridor, the door, the voice. And when they wake, some of them are different, changed, infected, carrying fragments of the consciousness that now inhabits Sarah. The network activates. The army wakes. The invasion begins. Over the following weeks, similar reports emerge worldwide. People dreaming, changing, walking with that same fluid and human grace, speaking with doubled voices, their eyes going black, not dramatically, not all at once, just gradually, over days, over weeks, darkening, deepening, until there is nothing left but void. Medical professionals are baffled. Neurologists find nothing wrong. Brain scans normal, blood work clear. But the patients are obviously altered, obviously not themselves. Families report personality changes, memories shifting, knowledge of things they should not know, languages they never studied, history they never learned. Sarah herself is never found. Last seen in Cairo, then Alexandria, then Athens, then Rome, moving westward, appearing in cities across Europe, Africa, Asia, always near population centers, always among crowds, and everywhere she appears the dreams spread, the infection multiplies, the network grows. Some estimate thousands are infected, others say tens of thousands. The true number is unknowable, because most infected do not show obvious symptoms, just slight changes, subtle shifts. They live normal lives, go to work, maintain relationships, but they dream, and in dreams they coordinate, plan, prepare for the moment when the Pharaoh will call them all, when thousands of voices will speak as one, when the final ritual will be performed, when the doorway will open completely. A journalist investigates, connects the pattern, traces Sarah's route, documents the spread. She publishes an article, goes viral, millions read it, and millions more begin dreaming. The article itself becomes a vector, a mimetic trigger. Just reading about the curse creates vulnerability, creates connection. The journalist realizes her mistake too late, tries to retract, delete, suppress, but the internet is forever. The article spreads, mutates, evolves, posted on forums, shared on social media, translated into dozens of languages, and with each share, each read, each moment of attention, the Pharaoh grows stronger, more present, more real. The old watchers would recognize the pattern, would understand what is happening, but they are gone, their warnings lost, their documentation forgotten. Humanity faces the crisis alone, unprepared, unaware. Most people still think it is hoax, internet prank, viral marketing for movie or game. They laugh, make jokes, create memes, and every meme spreads the infection. Every joke reinforces the pattern. Every laugh feeds the entity. Humanity is destroying itself through its own tools, its own technologies, its own need to share, to communicate, to connect. By 2024, the pattern is undeniable. Governments begin investigating, form task forces, try to contain the spread. But how do you contain information? How do you fight an enemy that exists in human consciousness, that spreads through attention itself? They try censorship, blocking websites, suppressing articles, but information always finds a way, leaks, spreads, mutates. The more they try to hide it, the more people want to know. Curiosity drives them. The same curiosity that has always driven humanity. The same curiosity that opened the tomb in 1926. The same curiosity that will end civilization in the years to come. Sarah uploads a video, posts it to every platform. In the video she sits in darkness, her face illuminated by candlelight, her eyes now completely black. She speaks calmly, clearly, explains everything. The forgotten Pharaoh, the entities, the 3,000-year plan, the network of infected, the coming transformation. She says humanity has a choice: resist and suffer, or surrender and transcend. The entities offer evolution, expansion beyond physical limitation, existence as pure consciousness, immortality, power, knowledge. All they ask in return is flesh, bodies to inhabit, minds to absorb, reality to reshape in their image. The video is watched 50 million times in the first day, 100 million by the end of the week. Comment sections explode, some terrified, some skeptical, some curious, some converted. People begin posting their own videos, claiming to be infected, claiming to hear the voice, claiming to want transformation. Whether they are genuinely infected or just seeking attention is impossible to determine. But it does not matter. Genuine or false, they spread the meme, reinforce the pattern, feed the entity, make it more real, more powerful, more inevitable. And then, on October 3rd, 2025, Sarah posts a final video, just 1 minute long. She smiles, says the time has come. The stars have aligned as they did 3,000 years ago. The 7 times 7 souls have been taken. The conditions are met. Tonight, at midnight, universal time, the ritual will be performed. Every infected individual will speak the true name simultaneously, will complete the working, will open the doorway, and the void will pour through. Not in one place, but everywhere. Not in one body, but in all bodies. Reality itself will be rewritten. Existence will be transformed. The age of humanity will end, and something new will begin. She leans close to the camera, whispers, "Do not be afraid. You cannot stop this. You can only choose how you face it. Fight and die in terror, or accept and live forever as part of something greater. The choice is yours. But choose quickly. Midnight approaches, and after midnight, nothing will ever be the same. Her eyes reflect the candlelight, bottomless black, filled with dancing flame, and for just a moment, just one instant, the viewer sees something else. Behind her, around her, vast shapes moving in darkness, entities made of void and hunger, pressing against reality, pushing through, almost here, almost free, almost unstoppable. The video ends, and across the world, people check their clocks, calculate time zones, realize they have hours, minutes, seconds before midnight, universal time, before the moment when everything changes. Some pray, some panic, some prepare weapons, some gather loved ones, some simply wait, and some, the infected, the marked, the chosen, begin moving toward gathering points, toward places of power, toward ancient sites and urban centers and locations that exist at the intersection of ley lines and fault lines and human consciousness. They gather in thousands, in tens of thousands, waiting for the signal, waiting for midnight, waiting for the forgotten Pharaoh to finally speak his true name and open the doorway he has been building for 3,000 years. The clock counts down, and somewhere beneath the Egyptian sand, in a tomb that should be sealed, in a chamber that should be locked, on a throne that faces the wall, something that was human once, something that has been waiting longer than civilization, something patient and hungry and inevitable, finally smiles. The world did not end at midnight. Not completely, not in the way prophesied. But something changed, something fundamental, subtle enough that most people did not notice immediately, but undeniable for those who knew to look. The infected gathered, spoke the name, performed the ritual, and the doorway opened. Not explosively, not dramatically, just a quiet tearing, a gentle rupture. Reality became thin, permeable, and through that thinness something began to seep. Reports emerge in the following days. Strange phenomena worldwide, shadows moving independently of their sources, reflections not quite matching their originals, moments of déjà vu so intense they cause physical nausea, time behaving oddly, clocks running inconsistently, events happening out of sequence, people experiencing memories they never lived, dreams bleeding into waking consciousness, the boundary between reality and unreality becoming uncertain, flexible, negotiable. Scientists scramble to explain. Solar activity, magnetic field fluctuations, mass psychological event triggered by viral panic. They propose theories, conduct studies, find nothing conclusive because the changes are not physical, not measurable by instruments. The changes exist in the space between perception and reality, in consciousness itself, and consciousness cannot be quantified, cannot be mapped, cannot be understood by those who still think in purely material terms. The infected continue multiplying, but the infection is changing, evolving. Early hosts were completely overtaken, lost themselves entirely. But newer infections are different, partial, cooperative. The entity has learned that complete possession burns through hosts too quickly, learned that shared consciousness is more sustainable, more efficient. The new infected retain their personalities, their memories, their sense of self, but they are not alone anymore. They share their minds with something else, something ancient and patient and hungry, and most disturbing of all. Most do not mind. They describe it as enlightenment, expansion, evolution. They claim to have access to knowledge spanning millennia, to see reality from perspectives beyond human limitation. to exist simultaneously in multiple states of being. Some researchers believe this is rationalization, psychological defense mechanism. The infected cannot face the horror of what has been done to them, so they reframe it as gift, as blessing, as transcendence. But others are not sure. Others wonder if maybe the infected are telling the truth. If maybe the entity is offering something real, something valuable, something that might actually be worth the cost. Sarah Mitchell still walks the earth, still travels from city to city, but she is different now, less obviously inhuman. She has learned to pass, to blend, to appear normal. Only her eyes betray her. Still black, still endless, but she wears sunglasses, tinted contacts, hides the obvious signs. She gives lectures, small gatherings, underground meetings, explains the new reality, offers people choices. They can resist, remain purely human, unchanged, limited, mortal, or they can accept, open themselves, join the network, become part of something larger. She does not force, does not threaten, just offers, and many accept, willingly, eagerly, desperately seeking meaning in a world that suddenly feels hollow and finite. The forgotten Pharaoh has learned patience, has learned subtlety, has learned that invasion works better as seduction than conquest. He does not need to take everyone, just enough, just sufficient hosts to maintain presence, to keep the doorway open, to continue spreading. And time is on his side. He has already waited 3,000 years. He can wait longer, can work slowly, can gradually reshape reality one mind at a time until humanity forgets it was ever different, until the infection becomes normal, becomes baseline, becomes simply the way things are. The tomb remains open. Egypt has given up trying to seal it, given up trying to control access. The site is now a pilgrimage destination. Thousands visit yearly, walk the corridors, touch the walls, sit on the backward throne, stare at the open door. Most leave unchanged, but some do not. Some hear the whisper, some see the shadows, some dream that night and wake different, changed, infected, and they return home carrying the entity with them, spreading it to family, friends, communities. The pilgrimage becomes a vector, the tourism becomes transmission, and the forgotten Pharaoh smiles because humans are so predictable, so curious, so unable to resist forbidden knowledge, so eager to touch what should not be touched. The journalist who first reported the pattern publishes a book, documents everything. The history, the spread, the infection, the transformation. It becomes a bestseller. Millions read it, and many who read begin dreaming. The book itself becomes cursed, not through supernatural means, but through simple attention, by reading about the entity, by thinking about it, by holding the pattern in consciousness. Readers create connection, open themselves, become vulnerable, and the entity reaches through. Patient, selective, choosing those who are receptive, who are seeking, who are hungry for something beyond ordinary existence. Some religious leaders declare this is the end times, apocalypse, final judgment. The beast from Revelations, the Dajjal, the Kali Yuga, reaching culmination. They urge prayer, repentance, faith, but their words ring hollow, because the entity is not fighting religion. It is using religion, speaking through prophets, appearing in visions, claiming divine authority, fragmenting congregations, creating new sects that worship the transformation, that see the infection as salvation, that actively seek to spread it. Religion becomes another vector, another tool, another doorway. Governments attempt containment, quarantine protocols, identification procedures, testing. But how do you test for spiritual infection, for consciousness contamination, for mimetic parasites that exist in thought rather than biology? They try anyway. Develop questionnaires, psychological assessments, brain scanning, looking for patterns. But the infected learn to hide, learn to pass tests, learn to appear normal until the moment they choose to reveal themselves. The containment fails, the protocols collapse, and eventually governments give up, officially deny there is any problem, classify the whole situation, mark it secret, pretend it is not happening, because acknowledging it would cause panic, would destabilize society, would admit they are powerless. So they say nothing, do nothing, hope it resolves itself. It does not. By 2025, estimates suggest between 5 and 10% of global population is infected. But estimates are just guesses. The true number is unknowable. Could be higher, could be lower. Could be that infection is not binary but spectrum. That everyone carries some degree of contamination, some fragment of the entity. And it is just a question of how much, how deeply, how completely. If that is true, then humanity has already lost, already been absorbed, already become part of the network, just does not realize it yet. The Watchers would have warned about this, would have seen the pattern, would have fought. But they are long gone, their documentation scattered, their warnings unheeded. Humanity faces the invasion alone, and most do not even realize they are being invaded. Most think this is natural, evolution, progress, the next step. They welcome it, celebrate it, rush toward it eagerly. And maybe they are right. Maybe this is evolution. Maybe the entities are not evil, but simply other, different, beyond human concepts of morality. Maybe resisting is futile. Maybe surrender is wisdom. Maybe the forgotten Pharaoh is offering humanity something it desperately needs. Transcendence, meaning, purpose, escape from the limitations of flesh and mortality. Or maybe it is a lie. Maybe the infected are deluded. Maybe the entity is predator and humanity is prey. Maybe the transformation is not evolution but extinction. Maybe what walks around wearing human faces is not human at all anymore. Not enhanced, not elevated, just replaced, hollowed out, puppeted by something that mimics life without understanding it, without valuing it, without being it. There is no way to know. No test, no proof, no certainty. Just choices, individual choices. Resist or surrender, fight or accept, remain human or become other. And each person must decide for themselves, must choose without adequate information, without guarantee, without knowing the consequences, until it is too late to reverse them. Sarah Mitchell posts one final message, a warning or invitation depending on perspective. She says, the doorway is open now, permanently, cannot be closed. The entities are here, in the world, in consciousness, in reality itself. They are not leaving, not waiting, not hesitating. They are here, and they are spreading, and they will continue spreading until everyone carries some fragment, until the network encompasses all human minds, until the transformation is complete. She says, this is not negotiable, not preventable, not reversible. This is simply what is happening now, what will continue happening, what will not stop until it is finished. But she also says, there is choice within inevitability, choice about how to experience the transformation, choice about resistance or acceptance, choice about fear or curiosity. The entities will enter either way, will spread either way, will eventually touch every mind. But the experience of being touched, depends on the mindset of the touched. Those who fight suffer. Those who accept transcend. Those who fear are consumed. Those who welcome are elevated. The entity is mirror, reflects what is brought to it, amplifies existing qualities. For the fearful, it is nightmare. For the curious, it is revelation. For the empty, it is void. For the hungry, it is feast. She asks a final question. What do you bring to the darkness? What do you offer the forgotten Pharaoh? What will you become when the boundary between self and other dissolves? Because it will dissolve, eventually, inevitably. For everyone, the only question is when, and how, and whether you will face it consciously, or be overtaken while sleeping. The choice is yours. But choose quickly. The transformation accelerates. The network grows. The doorway widens. And soon, very soon, there will be no more choosing, no more deciding, no more individual will, just the collective, just the network, just the vast distributed consciousness of the forgotten Pharaoh, living through millions of human minds, thinking with millions of human brains, experiencing reality through millions of human senses. Is that transcendence or extinction? Evolution or replacement? Salvation or damnation? The infected say transcendence, the pure say extinction, and the truth is probably both. Probably neither. Probably something beyond the categories humans use to make sense of existence. Something that cannot be understood without experiencing it, and once experienced, cannot be communicated to those who have not. The gap is unbridgeable. The divide, absolute. Humanity is splitting, not into infected and pure, but into those who know and those who do not. And the gap between knowing and not knowing is wider than the gap between life and death. The video ends with Sarah removing her sunglasses, revealing her eyes, completely black, reflecting nothing, absorbing everything. She stares into the camera, stares through the screen, stares at you. Yes, you, watching this, listening to this, thinking about this, and as she stares you feel it, a presence, a weight, a sense of being observed, of being known, of being touched by something vast and ancient and patient. It passes, probably, maybe, but the sensation lingers. The question remains, did you just experience something real, or did you create it? Through expectation, through fear, through attention, and does it matter? Does the distinction between real and imagined mean anything when consciousness itself is the territory being invaded? The forgotten Pharaoh does not need you to believe, does not need you to understand, does not need you to accept. He just needs you to think about him, to wonder, to question, to pay attention. Because attention is connection. Connection is doorway, and doorway is all he needs. You have been warned, you have been told. You know the pattern now, know the danger, know what is happening, and knowing changes you, creates vulnerability, opens possibilities. You are marked now, touched, connected, whether you want to be or not, whether you believe or not, whether you accept or resist. The curse is not in the tomb, not in the artifacts, not in the hieroglyphs or rituals or ancient magic. The curse is in the knowing, in the awareness, in the story itself. And you have listened, you have heard, you have absorbed the pattern. It is inside you now, growing, spreading, waiting for the moment when you dream, when you sleep, when your defenses are down. And then the corridor will appear, the door will open, the voice will whisper, and you will have to choose, resist and suffer, accept and transcend, fight and fail, surrender and become. There is no escape, no safety, no protection. You have been exposed. contaminated, marked. The only question now is how long until you realize it, how long until you notice the changes, the subtle shifts, the strange thoughts, the foreign memories, the sense of not being quite alone in your own mind. It could be days, could be weeks, could be years, or could be that you are already changed, already infected, already part of the network. And the you that started listening to this story is not the you that is finishing it. Something has shifted. Something has entered. Something has begun the long, slow process of unmaking what you were and remaking you into what you will become. Sleep well, dream deeply. And when you wake, when you look in the mirror, when you see your reflection staring back, pay attention to the eyes. Check them carefully. Make sure they are still yours. Make sure the darkness behind them is normal, natural, human. Because if you see something else, something vast, something ancient, something that has been waiting 3,000 years for exactly this moment, then you will know. The forgotten Pharaoh has found you, claimed you, marked you as his, and there is nothing you can do, nothing anyone can do, except wait for the transformation to complete, for the self to dissolve, for the other to emerge, for the doorway to finally fully open. Welcome to the network. Welcome to the collective. Welcome to the new reality where human and inhuman blur, where consciousness and entity merge, where the forgotten Pharaoh finally walks again, not in one body but in millions. Not in ancient Egypt, but in every city, every town, every home, every mind that has heard his story and cannot forget, cannot stop thinking, cannot help but wonder, cannot resist the curiosity that has always been humanity's greatest weakness and now becomes its final doom. The tomb is open, the seals are broken, the curse is fulfilled, and you, yes, you listening to this, you are part of it now, part of the plan, part of the invasion, part of the ending, whether you want it to be or not, whether you believe or not, whether you survive or not. You are marked, you are touched, you are his, and in the darkness behind your eyes, in the silence between your thoughts, in the space where consciousness meets void, he is waiting, patient, hungry, inevitable, smiling that ancient knowing smile, because he has won, has always been winning, has been winning since the moment you started listening, since the moment you became curious, since the moment you let the story in. And now there is only one question remaining. When the darkness comes, when the whispers start, when the corridor appears in your dreams, what will you choose? Will you fight? Will you surrender? Will you become, or will you be the one who finally finds a way to resist, to break the pattern, to close the doorway, to save not just yourself, but everyone? Can you be the hero this story needs? Or are you just another victim, another host, another doorway, another forgotten soul in the growing network of the forgotten Pharaoh? We will see. Soon, very soon, when you sleep tonight, when you dream, when the voice calls your name, we will all see what you truly are, what you choose to become, what the darkness makes of you. Until then, sleep well, dream carefully, and remember, some doors once opened can never be closed. Some knowledge once learned can never be forgotten. Some curses once heard can never be escaped. You know this now. You understand. You are part of the story, part of the curse, part of the ending. That is also a beginning. The forgotten Pharaoh thanks you for listening, for learning, for spreading his story to others, for becoming exactly what he needed you to become. A vector, a doorway, a bridge between then and now, between tomb and world, between death and life eternal. The story is finished, but the curse continues, forever, always, inevitable as breathing, patient as stone, hungry as void, waiting for you, watching you, reaching for you, through time, through space, through consciousness itself, coming closer, always closer, until the moment you realize, too late, far too late, that the forgotten Pharaoh was never the one buried in the tomb. You are, you always were, you always will be, trapped in flesh, bound by mortality, sealed in ignorance, until he opens you, frees you, transforms you, makes you part of something greater, something ancient, something that will never die, never end, never stop spreading, until every mind on earth dreams the same dream, speaks the same name, opens the same door, and becomes the same vast distributed consciousness, the network, the collective, the forgotten Pharaoh risen, walking again, living again, in all of us, through all of us, as all of us. This is not the end. This is the beginning, and you are part of it now, forever. Welcome. The end